I have been blessed in that I have had 50 years doing something that I have thoroughly enjoyed and I've been paid for it. How good can you have it? $25,000. I'm constantly looking for a contestant with whom I can get laughs.
I had a dream about you, so I had to come down here.
What were we doing in the dream?
You were chasing me in the hayloft.
Bob started his career in radio while he was still in college, and even though when you think of The Price is Right, you think of Bob, his big break was actually Truth or Consequences in 1956.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
And I became the host of a national television show just overnight. It was the break of my lifetime.
It was 16 years later, in 1972, when Bob landed the job he would hold for nearly 35 years.
No matter how tired you get, there's always a place to take a little rest.
Bob helps thousands of contestants win big on the show, but those wheel spins and car giveaways help him win 17 Emmys, the most of any game show host.
How about that? Give it back now.
Love it.
But in 2007, Bob decided to drop his signature skinny mic and hand The Price is Right over to Drew Carey.
Drew Carey, come on down. It seemed to me that it was a neat time to retire. The show has been a hit since day one and is still right up there at the top. And I thought this was just a good time to quit.
He wasn't gone for long, though. Bob returned to the show 3 more times, first in 2009 to promote his autobiography.
With your permission, I would like to give everyone in the audience...
Then again in 2013 to celebrate his 90th birthday.
Oh, everybody say hi to the birthday boy, Bob Barker.
And finally, in 2015 for an epic April Fool's Day prank, taking Drew's place for a while before handing the reins back over.
Here's your host, Drew Carey.
Now, I'm here because I was selected by The Price is Right to be their April Fool. That's right.
How do you keep in such marvelous shape?
Well, I'm a vegetarian and I try to get my rest and I drink.
That sounds like a nice start for my life. I'm going to change it all over to that.
Bob had other iconic gigs. His appearance in Adam Sandler's Happy Gilmore in 1996 was his first ever movie role, and that fight, comedy gold.
I don't want a piece of you. I want the whole thing.
E.T. was on the set with Bob, where at 72 years young, he did his own stunt work.
Let's go.
Fellas on The Price is Right, we were talking about this in the dressing room, and I told them that I was going to be doing this and that I won the fight and so on. And they said, well, you got to do it yourself. You got to do it yourself. And so I suggested that, and they're letting me do it myself. I'm pleased. Here's a young man who watched me as he was growing up, and look at him, he's a star. He's a success.
See, that's what
it could happen to you if you watch me on television.
Bob went on to do cameos in other shows like How I Met Your Mother and Family Guy, and even dropped in on the Everybody Loves Raymond set for a gag.
Brad?
This is Brad. Yes, Brad. Yes, Bob.
Brad.
How are you?
I've been your fan for years.
You're the guy. Thank you. Brad.
But perhaps his favorite role was that of devoted husband to his wife of 36 years, Dorothy. The couple met when Bob was just 15 years old and remained together until her death from lung cancer in 1981 at age 57. It was true love for Bob, who always credited his wife with his success.
My wife and I had our own radio show years and years and years ago. And when we go on vacation, we'd be talking about the show. If we had a long weekend, no matter what we were doing, we'd say, you know, for the show we could, and it was always the show, the show.
Bob never remarried, and in his later years, he was often seen visiting Dorothy's grave. But here's something else most people never knew about Bob.
I am a karate enthusiast. Chuck Norris was my first instructor. I had never even seen karate, let alone do it. And I had Chuck Norris as a guest on Truth or Consequences, and he did a demonstration that was so impressive that I thought, ooh, I want to do that. Here's my friend in retirement, She sees more of me and I see more of her. And we're happy about it, aren't we, Jesse?
And while Bob's TV legacy is undisputed, he hosted everything from the Rose Parade to the Miss USA pageant and earned a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Emmys in 1999.
I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to all of these nice things said about me. Things that in the past only I've said about me. Well, you can't get too many of them.
He was also universally admired as an animal activist, using his platform to raise awareness with his famous sign-off.
Help control the pet population. Have your pets spayed or neutered.
That sign-off was immortalized by Eddie Murphy decades later in Shrek 2.
I say we take the sword and neuter him right here. Give him the Bob Barker treatment.
Well, I've always loved animals. I felt compelled to try to do what I could to change the situation.
Bob took a hard stance when it came to fighting for the humane and ethical treatment of animals around the world. He was a vocal campaigner against all forms of animal cruelty and exploitation, protesting publicly on behalf of his four-legged friends.
Release those elephants and let them go into a sanctuary.
I would prefer that animals were not exploited in any way. Circuses, rodeos, movies, zoos, you name it.
Now look up there and smile. There you are.
We need more voices like mine, and we need more voices, period. I think that the fact that I have the opportunity to be with you on Entertainment Tonight is important. The fact that I have the opportunity to talk about animals to your vast audience is important.
Bob even took on movie studios, demanding the ethical treatment of animals on set. No matter how cute and cuddly or large and majestic, Bob was their champion and made no apologies for it.
You get the idea I have an opinion?
You sure do. I'll tell you that much.
You should see me when I get councilmen to listen.
In his later years, Bob was plagued by health problems, including a torn ligament in his ankle, prostate surgery, and neck surgery.
I had a carotid artery that had become blocked, and I had some surgery from which I've recovered very well, thank you. And I am back at work, and we're grinding out one hit after another.
In 2015, he suffered a bad fall on the sidewalk outside his home.
So I twisted and landed right over here, but my head was up on the cement, and so I cut my head all up and cut my knee and scraped it.
Bob recovered from the scrapes and bruises and enjoyed relatively good health well into his late 90s. But we will always remember him for his warm smile and good nature and the happiness he brought to millions of fans.
I've enjoyed the whole thing. I really have. Where am I going to be? I hope I'm up there looking down on the whole thing. I'd hate to think I'm looking up. I would like to have them remember me as a man who loved all living things and did all he could during his life to make ours a better world for animals, and at the same time did a lot of television shows.
I don't know what to say. I was doing the drum solo from Inagata Devita there. The long album version when the drums only kick in. But seriously, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. I'm sad. You know, I haven't felt this way since Casey Kasem passed away in 2014. You all know that I'm a huge fan of radio. My dream was to get into radio, and I never did. So my heroes were people like Casey Kasem And even though he was a television host, Bob Barker, you know, when I was younger, I liked Howard Stern in the morning on the radio. Walton and Johnson in the morning as well. Now I love a radio station in Orlando, Florida called Florida Man Radio, and I do have a hero still alive, Shannon Burke. He's only in his late 50s, so he's got a little time left. Hopefully. But, you know, Bob Barker is one that I get a lot of my comedic style, I think, from him. I grew up watching The Price is Right. I mean, my whole life. I probably started watching it in the late 80s because my mother would watch it, and if I wasn't in school, we were at home watching it. And, I mean, I continued to watch it all the way until 2007 when he retired. And then I kept watching it when Drew Carey started. And I still watch it to this day. Now, I don't like to criticize people for unfair reasons. Drew Carey is a fine host, okay? I don't have a problem with him. But he's no Bob Barker. In the same way that Ryan Seacrest is no Casey Kasem. You know, currently on American Top 40, it's hosted by Ryan Seacrest, and you can hear it every Sunday morning like you could for the last 50-something years. And that's my response. He's no Bob Barker. Bob Barker had a certain style and repertoire with the audience that I don't think will ever be replicated. Again, using comparisons, in the same way that Casey Kasem did American Top 40. He had a certain way of doing it, and Ryan Seacrest came in there and changed it all up, and I don't find him as entertaining as Kasem. Well, I don't find Drew Carey as entertaining as Bob Barker. That's not to say he's a bad host. I'm not saying Ryan Seacrest is a bad host of American Top 40. I'm just saying that, you know, I'm from the late 80s, 90s generation. So I joke and say that we got the leftovers. Because if you think about it, look at American Top 40. The Casey Kasem tapes that air all over the local radio and on Sirius XM, on 70s on 7 and all that. They're 70s and 80s, right? Okay. The Price is Right, the Bob Barker era channel on Pluto TV is comprised of 70s and 80s shows. There's no 90s and 2000s. There's none from my generation to watch. They exist. They were filmed. They aired. I watched it. But I guess that wasn't the heyday of the person's career. So they do the heyday when they were most famous, you know. So I would love to hear American Top 40. I wish they did package the 90s and 2000s shows all the way up until his retirement in 2009. I would love to hear that again, because I most likely heard it when it originally aired. Same with The Price is Right. I wish that they would have episodes from the 90s and 2000s for us to watch on that channel. Maybe they will now that he's gone. I don't know, but what is interesting is the fact that what I'm seeing, like with Casey Kasem, all of the 70s tapes. I wasn't born until 1981, so I didn't hear any of that. I started listening probably around 85, 86. Same with Bob Barker, Price is Right. I started watching around that same time. So I continued to listen and watch throughout the years, and you know. But anything pre-85, 86, I never saw when it originally aired. So that's all new stuff to me. And it's interesting to watch because I am familiar with these people and their careers. So I get to see what made them so famous, you know? And I love that. You know, I have a funny memory. When I was working at Walmart in 2004, it was probably like September, October. We were in the garden center setting up for Christmas. My boss, he brought a radio back there, and then he brought a television. I say a radio, it was a boombox. And normally they would give us CDs to play. They'd give us like 5 or 6 of them, and we just repeated them over time. This year, this specific year, 2004, he brought us a television set. And before we started setting it up, I asked him, what are we doing with this? He had DVDs. It was a TV set that had a DVD player built into it. He had DVDs of Frosty the Snowman, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, all that stuff. And he says, we're going to play these on rotation as well as the music CDs. Okay. So now I have to always stop and hit the play button on that. But anyway, so me and my coworkers, we start setting up and everything. And well, if you've ever been into a Walmart garden center, they've got those big, humongous steel shelves where they put the lawnmowers and all that stuff. So we put the TV up high somewhere. Now, I had a good relationship with my bosses. I didn't get in trouble or anything like that. My boss, he knew I did the job and I worked and all that. So we had a very funny relationship. Like, I could do silly stuff and he'd just be like, "Yeah, like an old man, get down here." Yes, sir. So anyway, we were setting up the television and it had an antenna on it. So I turn on the local Air TV, because of course we don't have cable back there. And The Price is Right is on our local CBS, WAFB, Channel 9. This was before the digital transition. So it was all analog, and I picked up about 3 or 4 channels, of course. And I left it on The Price is Right. I like that show. I like Bob Barker, so I leave it on. And we're just watching it, you know. I get down and continue setting up around the base and everything, and I just left it on. I'm watching it as I create. Well, somewhere in there, my boss walks back to the garden center. He walks through the opening, and he's looking at it, and he's looking at me. And he's like, "Why is The Price is Right on?" One of my coworkers says, "We wanted to watch The Price is Right." I said, "Well, because we're not fully set up yet, and we want to watch turn it off now. Get down here." And we're going to set this up. Here's your DVDs. Yes, sir. But, you know, that's a funny thing I can remember. I'm going to miss Bob. You know. I'm getting a little sad as I get older because a lot of my heroes are dying. You know. They are. I always joke that being from the 90s generation, we kind of got the leftovers. And that's basically what's happening. These people were a lot older than we were when we were listening or watching them. Casey Kasem, American Top 40 started in 1970. He was already in his 40s. Same with Bob Barker. The Price is Right started in 1972. And he was into his 40s. So, these people were already old when they started. And then I didn't get to them until 15, 20 years into their career already. So, by the time I got to them, they were damn near almost 60. Now, Casey Kasem died at the age of 82 in 2014. He retired from American Top 40 in 2009. Bob Barker retired from The Price is Right in 2007. So all these people roughly around the same time ended their prolific careers. But, you know, it's amazing. There's a Simon and Garfunkel song called Old Friends, and Paul Simon wrote a line, strange, I forget the line, something about you blink and the next minute you're 70. Well, he's 81 now. So he's long past 70. But of course, back in the late 60s, the average person was expected to probably die in their 70s. So that's what that's about. Modern medicine has helped keep us alive longer. Obviously. I mean, you could look at Bob Barker, how he's been looking in his last couple of years. I hate to be crude, but he looks like he should have been gone a long time ago. And you know, I want to point this out. I came across something this afternoon that angered me. A so-called news outlet, I will not give the name, and I will not name the person who did this. I will just say, a so-called news outlet took it upon themselves to trash Bob Barker after announcing his death. Now, I learned some things I didn't know about him that I don't think a lot of people knew, because again, he was a true class act. He didn't get involved in confrontations and all that kind of stuff. Apparently, he was a Republican. In today's day and age, that's a crime. Big deal. But, you know, it's a left-leaning news outlet, so they've got to trash him because he was a Republican. They aired a bunch of old commercials for political candidates that he was a part of. Then they trashed him for certain positions he held. Here's something interesting. He was a member of PETA. Yeah, remember all the animal PSAs he did and all that? I never knew he was actually a member of PETA. I knew that he was considered an animals rights activist, but I didn't know he was an active member of PETA. You know, and again, due to nasty politics, I always thought that PETA was a very left-leaning organization. And it could be, I don't know. But, you know, I would like to say this, because I do make a lot of jokes. I don't have a problem with the PETA organization. I don't. Animals need a spokesperson to stand up for them because they can't. And that's fine. I love animals too. That's one thing I really found a common thing with Bob Barker was my love for animals. Anybody will tell you that. I love animals. And I will not see them treated unfairly. However, reasoning, logic comes in. Over the years, PETA has made some statements that were extremely exaggerated to the point where you could find comedic relief in them. So, I would make jokes, you know, maybe mock something that was said by the organization or something like that. but I in no way have a problem with the PETA organization. However, I do eat meat. You know, I'm one of those people, again, that in that sense I can see both sides of the issue. Let's take, for instance, Bob Barker had a problem with Ted Nugent. I'm a fan of both people. I love Ted Nugent. I love Bob Barker. Same way I love Barbara Streisand, who's a very extreme liberal Democrat, but yet I'm a conservative person, and you know, I never usually agree with her politically, but I respect her art, and I do think that she is an American treasure. Her work should be remembered as very important work in this country. But I'm just trying to state that I look beyond those things, you know. And Ted Nugent likes to bitch that he's unfairly criticized about his treatment of animals. I'm a huge Ted Nugent fan. You saw the footage here. I went and saw him in Florida. I'm very conservative, and yes, I agree with him all the time. I mean, I do. He's on my side. But again, he likes to bitch that he's unfairly criticized by people like PETA or someone like Bob Barker. All I can say is, look, I understand the argument that hunting needs to be done to control the population, which is one thing I don't understand why Bob Barker couldn't look at it that way, that, you know, he's for controlling. He always closed The Price is Right with control the pet population, control the animal population. Well, hunting does that. Now, me personally, I can't hunt. I don't have the heart to kill anything. I'm a sissy when it comes to that. But I understand the argument. It needs to be done. And as long as you don't waste, as long as you use what you kill, meaning eat, I'm fine. I understand. I get angry, though, when people don't. There are people that kill for sport and don't use what they're killing for anything other than the joy of killing. And I hate that. I can't stand that. Not one bit. In my mind, those are criminals. They're murdering innocent animals and just throwing them away. Ted Nugent at least does it. He uses it for food, and that's one thing he says. If he can't eat it, he won't kill it. And I see that argument, and I don't have a problem with that. But like I was saying, he bitches that he's unfairly criticized. All I'm going to say is, if you're going to bitch about it, maybe you should tone it down a little bit. Because, you know, he likes to go on camera and, I killed this. You guys, maybe you could tone it down a bit. That's all I'm saying. I get why you do what you do, and I don't have a problem with it. But don't complain that you're unfairly criticized either. You know? Now, in the case of PETA, yeah, sometimes they go too far and they make asinine statements that'll make you bust a gut. It's one of those things. I see both sides, and you know. So anyway, I hate getting political on here, but you get my point. I can see things very nuanced and very. I like both people. I'm a fan of both people. They dislike each other for specific reasons, but you know, both have a good argument. So that's my take on that. We'll talk about something else. Anyways, so during this news thing, so-called news thing, they went even further. They brought up all of the allegations from the 90s with the model that sued him for sexual harassment. I don't know what she sued him for, because she went off the rails. She said that he molested her, had sex with her, and now they demonized him for these allegations. And again, I like to be fair to people. He was a very wealthy man, had a lot of money. I don't find it too far-fetched that somebody, especially somebody that had been fired, would make claims of sexual harassment. We had sex and all this, because they want something out of it. Money, fame, whatever it would be. But people in high-profile positions like that get that all the time. So it becomes her job to prove that. Well, that didn't go very far. For as much controversy as was around that, that was a very short-lived lawsuit. She dropped it. And when asked why, she said, "I don't have the money or the time." Well, then I can't find any fault with this man. You're accusing him of stuff, but you have no proof. Oh well. You know, I defend Michael Jackson in the same way, and people don't understand. I say, look, the man was a weirdo. I gotcha, okay? He was weird. Weird beyond belief. Okay? You see the interviews with Martin Bashir where he's swinging off the trees and whee! And who has an amusement park at their house? Who invites only kids? I gotcha. He was a weirdo. Okay? But he was also a very high-profile person. So when a few kids come up and make some allegations, I hear what they're saying. I take it to account as being as weird as he was. But at the same token, you have to prove it. Because at the end of the day, yes, he is a high-profile person. There will be people trying to take advantage of him and extort money out of him. If anything, they would be extorting and using the fact that he was a weirdo against him. So when it comes to things like that, I like to take a fair approach. You know, in today's society, it seems like it's flip-flopped. Now you're guilty until you're proven innocent. But I believe in innocent until proven guilty. You're going to have to prove it. So, anyways, I thought that was classless. I'm not going to name this network, and I'm not going to name the anchor that did it. All I'm going to say is they have absolutely no credibility with me. And again, I just think they're classless. You know, it seems like today we live in it's politics 24/7. And everybody just, if you're on the other side, to hell with you, I hate you. And that's just BS in my opinion. Come on, man. And we're now doing it to people that die. People that don't... Bob Barker doesn't deserve that. He was a very fine human being. Okay? I'm sure there were opinions of his that I wouldn't have agreed with or liked. But, I mean, everybody has that. Now we've gotten to where everything is a monolith. If you're a Republican, then you stand for everything that's horrible and you must be destroyed. And on the Republican side, it would be, you're a Democrat, you're a liberal, you need to be destroyed because you accept all this stuff. I could tell you, I've met people from both sides that might agree with maybe 40% of the actual people in power's positions, but them themselves are common people, you and me, and they can rationalize, and they can, have a different opinion. It's okay, So I think that's very sad. I mean, that's classless, like I said. It angers me. But that's a subject for another video I'll do on politics later. Anyway, getting back to Bob Barker. I will miss him. The Price is Right has been a part of my life pretty much all of my life. I've played 2 different Wii versions of the game here on the channel for you. I've got 3 versions of The Price is Right on the Nintendo Wii. The only reason I have them on the Wii is because there was no counterpart on another platform that I had. So they all just coincidentally ended up on the Nintendo Wii for me. None of them were on PlayStation. Now, The Price is Right Decades was on Xbox 360, but my relationship with Xbox, it's non-existent. And the other 2 were only on PC and Wii for some reason. Don't know what that's about. And I don't have a PC. I have a Mac, so had to get it on the Wii. But anyway, I play those games all the time, and it's just a testament to how much that show means to me. I will continue to watch it every day. I love it. Drew Carey is a fine host, like I said. He's got his style and his persona, and it's okay. No, he's no Bob Barker. And Bob Barker's style and persona will never be replicated, and it shouldn't be. Who wants a copycat? Let it be something that you can remember and look very fondly back on. That's the way I see it. So, rest in peace, Bob Barker. Godspeed, my friend. I only wish the best to his friends and family. And I will see you on the flip side.